Welcome back to another video. Today I figured it's so nice out. I think we're at November 7th right now, and I just cannot believe how beautiful it is right now. It's yeah, I figured I'd take advantage of the nice weather. We're on borrowed time right now, and I still have not removed this electric fence from grazing the sheep. So we're gonna get that removed today. I've already taken down part of it. And the reason why I have so much electric fence out is I don't have permanent fencing put in quite yet for the sheep in my back pastures. We've only had, up until last year, I think we were only running about 70 ewes. So, and yeah, we didn't need the pasture in the back, but between the drought last year and the drought this year, I didn't want to overgraze the pastures. So I fenced off a huge little area in the back for these sheep. And next year it'll be permanent fencing. That's my number one thing to do in the spring, is get the permanent fencing put up for this. So I've already removed the section along the highway and along the back. I have an easy poly roll up for that side because it doesn't have to necessarily be as secure as the rest of this, but between my horses and the sheep, I do run just regular galvanized wire. I do flag it, but the flags do wear off over the course of the summer. So I run 2 strands of that in between the horses and the sheep just to make sure that the horses see it. But otherwise, along the other side on the temporary fence, I just run 1 wire at just below knee height on myself. I'm about 5'7", and that's just about perfect for the sheep. It's eye level for them. Don't need to worry about them trying to go under it or trying to go over it. And as far as fencers, I like this S40. It has the wildlife option on it, which means that it just blinks a little bit faster. And then it also has the livestock setting where it blinks half as much. But I do really like that one for these longer stretches of fences. And then I have a little S16 Gallagher as well. And I use that for the temporary fencing out along ditches, around my bale stack in the fall when I'm still grazing that pasture. These Gallaghers are well worth the investment. Like, they're not cheap, don't get me wrong, but being solar and never having to worry about changing batteries, they're awesome. And then also, this is my poly roll wire. It's turbo wire on there. Makes it easier to put it down and pick it back up again for the temporary fencing. I usually use that inside my pastures so that it's quick and simple to put up, and I can rotational graze the sheep. I've got the farm car out today bringing this all in. My truck currently doesn't have 4x4, and so with this sloppy snow on the ground, we got about 4 inches there the other day. So with the sloppy snow on the ground and the truck so heavy, I just start spinning, and I don't want to wreck my grass. What grass is out here. This pastures have been very overgrazed, and I've got a bunch of manure I need to spread on them in the spring, and hopefully can bring them back to life. Might do a little bit of overseeding, a little bit of leveling. Got a few gopher holes out there, typical for the prairies. But yeah, let's get this fence rolled up. as you just seen, we got the electric fence down and got some market lambs weighed. It's nice to be kind of at the tail end of the market lambs. So I figured I would just do a quick little run through and explain what we feed our sheep, and then also the flush program, how the general basis of how I run the sheep program on our small farm. And just for clarification, just for any new viewers that may be watching, when I say small farm, I mean approximately about 100 to 110 ewes. We're pretty small, but at the same time we're bigger than a homestead. So it is nice to have a little bit of income that comes off the lambs. So I try my best to do with the feeding program. Year to year it varies as to what hay I can find for them. This year I was very fortunate to find some hay from my neighbor. It's about 70% alfalfa, 30% mixed grasses, has some timothy, fescue, yeah, just mixed grasses. It's very soft. The sheep absolutely love it, so that is the majority of our feed for this winter. I do have some other bales, and if anyone has any deeper questions, then just send me a message, you know, ask a question, drop a comment, I'd rather have people ask questions than to think that I'm absolutely crazy when I say that this is how I do it on the small farm, and maybe I'm wrong. It seems to work. We have multiple lambs and our ewes are in great shape. If anything, they're a little bit chubby. So yeah, basically, in that short that everybody's seen, the ewe lambs were starting their flush program. So with a flush program, all you really necessarily need to do is increase your protein and your energy going into the feed. So with the amount of good hay that they're getting, they don't need a whole lot of extra. So we feed them barley just to flush them out. So all they aim to do with a flush program is to just increase their ovulation. Helps them be able to be in the best condition that they can be in order to support those lambs and get pregnant the first time. So they'll flush for 3 to 4 weeks before breeding. Then you also want to keep them on a high energy, high protein for 2 to 3 weeks after the rams go out as well. And that just allows that if they don't catch on the first cycle, that they're still in good enough condition to catch on the second cycle. So with our sheep here on Sheep Happens, we end up, I will cut the ewes off about a month. It depends like what time of the year, but about a month with the rams, and then there's usually about 2 months in between before the next breeding cycle starts. So with that gives me, you know, tight lambing groups. And then what I do for the last breeding group is I will leave the rams out for 6 weeks, sometimes even longer. And that just allows any of the tail enders that didn't catch, that they can be caught in that last cycle. So then from there, during the pregnancy, you just want to give them a good amount of hay. No overfeeding, no grain during the bulk of the pregnancy. And then 3 to 5 weeks before lambing, that's when you really want to look at the condition of your ewes. If they're too chunky, they don't need anything. Maybe even just kind of keep them where they're at. You don't want to make any drastic changes at the end. But if they're too skinny, you do want to add a little bit of grain. Whether, you know, some sort of protein or energy. But you got to be careful with that, because you don't want to allow those lambs to get too big and then you have to pull them. Everyone knows their own flock. They're going to have to make their own decisions on that. My particular ewes, generally, anything but those little Katahdin crosses, little black ones, it does very well with no grain, just a little bit extra or a little bit better, more protein hay. So a lot of times I'll actually buy some second cut alfalfa that's 90% alfalfa to, you know, feed for that 3 weeks previous to lambing. And after they come out, then I do allow the ewes to have a small amount of barley. Till the lambs are, you know, 4 or 5 weeks old, somewhere in there. Then you want to ease back on the barley and the hay a little bit. I kind of give, I don't want to say free choice because it's not free choice, but I overfeed them in their hay during those first 4 to 5 weeks of having lambs on them, just because I want those lambs to do as best they can. Yeah, so then you can start decreasing the hay, take out the barley, and by that time the lambs should be on the crate very well. And with that, they've developed what they need from mom as far as the milk, and they continue growing on their own. They'll eat quite a bit of hay on their own as well. And then as far as the ewes, about a week before lambing, you really want to cut back on the amount of alfalfa, give them a lower quality hay or straw, mix it in with their hay. I usually find grass bales that have very low protein. You usually want to keep them on that for about a week until their bags dry up. That's the best way to be able to keep the ewes in good condition. And you'll probably notice that a lot of the ewes, as they get in that later lactation, what I've found over the years is that is the time to be able to get them to lose weight. As I've said, my ewes are way too chunky. I mean, some of them are on the point of obese. It's that lactation is where you can get them to lose weight, because with Dorbers, they are from South Africa originally. They're used to desert, dry climate. They can survive on sand and, you know, looking at a flake of straw, so, or a blade of grass. Like, they're very easy keepers. So with that, I use lactation in order to lower their body condition score. But yeah, this is kind of the basic rundown of the breeding program here at Sheep Happens. It's not a science or an art, and, you know, I'm not going to tell you to feed X amount of pounds of hay per day. All I can say is that my ewes have done very well on 70 to 80% alfalfa, rest grasses, not overfeeding, not underfeeding, adding the barley before you breed, a couple weeks after you have the rams out, and then after they lamb, they get a little bit of barley for the first 3 or 4 weeks, and then get weaned from there. So if anyone has any questions, like I said, drop a comment. I know I'm terrible at explaining these things. I'm still extremely nervous on the camera. Still trying to figure out how to not get rambling and try and explain this as best I can, but I know I'm doing a terrible job. So if anyone has anything to say, just let me know.